The monitors in the Galactic Federation headquarters blinked like nervous fireflies in the vast control room. 1,000 screens, each connected to 100,000 systems across the cluster, reflected the panic in the eyes of officers who had never imagined a scenario so improbable. And yet, here it was. Earth had gone silent. Admiral Ky'raan leaned back in his chair, a long scar slicing through his jaw, his hand unconsciously tracing the cold metal of his console. Veteran of countless campaigns against fractious alien species, he had seen rebellion, mutiny, and warships crumble under laser fire. But this was different. This was the sound of the void swallowing a voice no one thought could vanish. "Status report," he said, his voice steady despite the tension crawling over his shoulders. "Multiple frequencies dead, sir," said Lieutenant Ky'raan, tapping a holographic panel nervously. "All communications from the Sol system, black. No signals, no transmissions, no planetary activity. The humans, they're gone." Ky'raan's lips pressed into a thin line. He had known humans were unpredictable, even in their so-called diplomacy. He had fought their fleets, studied their strategies, and listened to their emissaries speak with unshakable confidence, even in the face of superior forces. But gone, completely dark? That was a gamble no one with a functioning brain would expect. Across the room, the alien officers murmured. The subtle scales along their necks quivered as they processed the news, their multifaceted eyes reflecting growing dread. In their minds, silence was a precursor to chaos. Silence meant the humans were preparing for something enormous. Ky'raan rotated his chair to face the main projection dome. There it was, a live three-dimensional map of the Sol system. Empty, silent. Normal orbital mechanics, yes, but lifeless. The humans' world, once buzzing with unending signals, now lay cloaked in a stillness that felt like a shroud. "They call it madness," muttered Ky'raan under his breath, almost to himself. "The humans, they call it Monday." He could almost hear the echo of human humor, their stubbornness baked into their very bones. He remembered reports of skirmishes where their outnumbered fleets had turned tides with nothing but ingenuity, determination, and a refusal to accept the impossible. They were survivors by instinct and innovators by necessity. "Admiral," Ky'raan said again, voice tight. "The colonial fleets are asking for orders. They want to move in, investigate, secure." Ky'raan held up a hand. "No, not yet." He felt it deep in his chest. The kind of intuition that had saved him more than brute force ever could. Earth's silence was a message, but it was one he wasn't ready to decode. He turned away from the projection and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the Galactic Council chambers. Stars stretched endlessly across the black expanse, distant suns flickering like sparks from a cosmic forge. Somewhere, beyond this galaxy, humans were alive, and somehow they were always watching. Ky'raan exhaled slowly, feeling a ripple of unease in his chest. His eyes traced the orbits of the planets he had studied since cadet days. None of this was ordinary. The humans were not known for subtlety, yet here they were, invisible, silent, unfathomable. A junior officer scuttled up to him, trembling, and placed a small device in his hand. The console blinked faintly, registering data from an incoming scout fleet. Ky'raan's gaze sharpened. He knew the look in their systems, the way sensors reflected movement that wasn't there. Earth wasn't passive. Earth was preparing. Across the room, an alien diplomat whispered something incomprehensible, the words trembling with fear. Ky'raan couldn't understand the language, but the tone carried across all species. Panic. Humans had achieved that, not through fleets, not through diplomacy, but simply by disappearing. They had made the impossible clear. Do not underestimate us. Ky'raan clenched his fists, feeling a strange kinship with the humans he had studied. They were unpredictable, they were relentless, and he sensed it now, the first hint of a storm gathering where none had been expected. "Prepare the observation array," Ky'raan ordered. "We will not make the first mistake. Watch. Wait. Learn what they intend. Do not engage." Lieutenant Ky'raan nodded, eyes wide, and began coordinating the array. Every officer, every diplomat, every fleet commander felt it. A quiet terror, like standing before a predator you cannot see. Ky'raan's gaze lingered on the projection of Earth. His chest tightened with a mix of respect and fear. The humans were always capable of defying expectation, always capable of turning silence into strategy. And somewhere in the dark reaches of the galaxy, the humans were alive, watching, waiting. Ky'raan whispered to himself, a shiver running through him. Not luck. Someone wanted them to survive. The room held its collective breath. Across the council, across the fleets, a single unspoken thought spread like wildfire. Silence could be deadlier than war. Then, without warning, the sensors blipped. A scout fleet sent to observe Earth disappeared without a trace. No debris, no distress signal, nothing. Just gone. Ky'raan froze, a chill running down his spine. He stared at the dark projection, the void where the fleet had been moments before. And in that silence, he felt it. Something deeper than strategy. Something older than the stars. Earth had not surrendered. Earth had become the storm, and somewhere in the cold stretch of space, humanity's quiet voice began to roar. Ky'raan's jaw clenched as he stared at the empty grid where the scout fleet had vanished. The silence wasn't just a lack of signal. It was an assertion, deliberate and undeniable. Every officer in the Galactic Federation's central chamber felt the same icy tension settle over them, heavier than the void outside. Humans were not merely absent. They were orchestrating something monumental. Lieutenant Ky'raan's voice was barely audible over the hum of the observation array.
Sir, I don't understand.
The fleet just evaporated. No debris, no hull signals, nothing. Ky'raan didn't reply immediately. He rotated in his chair, letting his gaze travel across the projection dome. Earth hung there, seemingly peaceful, the blues and greens of its oceans and continents masking the tempest beneath. The more he looked, the more he felt a creeping dread that this calm was intentional, dangerous, and very human. Prepare all fleet sensors for remote spectrum analysis, he finally said. Scan everything. Orbital patterns, magnetic fluctuations, energy emissions, everything. If they're hiding something, I want to see it before we commit a single ship. Ky'raan hesitated. Sir, it could be dangerous. The humans. Ky'raan's eyes met the young officer's, sharp and unyielding. Lieutenant, I've seen what humans call impossible, and I've seen them laugh in its face. Don't tell me it's dangerous. Tell me it's possible. The words hung in the air, heavier than the vacuum beyond the windows. Across the council chamber, alien diplomats exchanged nervous glances. Even seasoned commanders knew humans thrived in chaos. They flourished where others floundered. And yet, no one had imagined this. A total disappearance, executed with precision that bordered on the impossible. In the midst of the commotion, Ky'raan's mind drifted briefly, not to strategy but to instinct. He had fought humans directly, seen their creativity ignite like a spark in a hurricane. He remembered the Battle of Zilara 4, where a handful of human engineers had rerouted planetary defenses to turn a losing war into a legendary victory. And now here in the silence of Earth he felt that same pulse, the quiet intelligence of a species who never gave up. He closed his eyes, imagining the planet below. Somewhere in the cities, hidden beneath layers of technology and secrecy, humans moved like shadows. Their children slept unaware of the danger above. Their leaders calculated each moment with patience and precision. And Ky'raan, despite the weight of his rank and experience, could not predict what they were about to do. The observation array buzzed as Ky'raan's fingers danced across the console. Patterns emerged, subtle gravitational anomalies around Earth's orbit, minor energy emissions that didn't match anything in the Federation's archives. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakably intentional. Ky'raan leaned in, his brow furrowed. They've built something in orbit. Not a fleet, not a station, something else. Something hidden but powerful. Ky'raan's eyes widened. Could it be weapons? Ky'raan shook his head. No, not weapons, not in the traditional sense. Humans don't just rely on firepower. They rely on cunning, on patience, on turning assumptions against their enemies. Whatever this is, it's strategic, and it's massive. The alien diplomats around them whispered, their fear palpable. They hide nothing of importance, one said, trying to rationalize what their sensors suggested. But the words rang hollow, even to Ky'raan's own ears. For the first time in decades, he felt a chill deeper than space itself, a recognition that humanity, that messy, unpredictable, relentless species, was about to remind the galaxy why underestimating them was a fatal error. Ky'raan returned to the main projection. Earth rotated silently, serene. And yet in that stillness, he could almost see the invisible hand of humans at work. Orbital defense arrays, cloaked planetary shields, satellite networks operating on encrypted cycles beyond comprehension. "Sir," Ky'raan said, voice trembling, "the humans, they're not just hiding. They're preparing for something larger. A defense. Something unlike anything we've cataloged." Ky'raan nodded slowly. "Yes, and it's exactly why silence is deadlier than war." He leaned back, letting the weight of it sink in. For centuries, humanity had been underestimated. Alien empires had relied on calculations, algorithms, and predictions, but humans had always played by different rules. Intuition, faith, creativity, and there it was again, that subtle sense of the divine, though not as a deity with form or voice, but as a quiet intelligence threading the universe together. Ky'raan had always believed in patterns, in coincidences that carried meaning. He thought now that perhaps humanity's ingenuity was not merely instinct, but something greater subtly guiding them, a spark of order within the chaos of the cosmos. A sudden alarm broke his reverie. Another scout fleet sent to Earth under the pretense of observation vanished within the blink of a star. Sensors went dark. Not destroyed, gone, just erased. The council erupted in panic. Alien officers shouted, demanded explanations, tried to formulate a strategy. Ky'raan raised a hand, cutting through the noise. "Enough, stop thinking in terms of battle. This is not a fight yet. This is observation. Learn first." He turned back to the projection. For a moment he allowed himself a grim smile. Humans were patient, precise, and silent, yet capable of the most extraordinary feats. They had waited for the moment the galaxy let its guard down. And now that moment was here. Ky'raan felt a strange calm settle over him despite the tension in the room. He could sense it, the humans were ready. They had prepared for this, not with fleets alone, but with foresight, ingenuity, and unity. And as he stared at the faint energy distortions around Earth, a single thought echoed in his mind, loud enough to pierce the panic. This is only the beginning. For the first time, the Admiral realized the truth. Humanity did not wage war by the rules anyone expected. They waged war by proving the impossible was inevitable. And somewhere on the hidden surface of Earth, unseen and unnoticed, humans whispered prayers not for themselves, but for clarity, for courage, for the quiet guidance that had always carried them through every impossible situation. The room fell silent again, the council members frozen, the aliens exchanging looks of pure, unfiltered terror. And Ky'raan, veteran of countless campaigns, felt it as plainly as if it were a living thing. Earth's silence was not surrender. It was a storm gathering, a storm that no empire could anticipate. Ky'raan's eyes remained glued to the projection dome as the reports came in, one after another, each more alarming than the last. Another reconnaissance fleet, sent to probe Earth's orbital perimeter, had simply vanished. Not crippled, not destroyed, completely erased from existence. The aliens around him were in various states of disbelief and fear. Many had never faced a species capable of such unpredictability, let alone one that could manipulate reality without a single visible action. Panic had begun to ripple through the council like a contagion. Ky'raan stood and walked slowly along the observation deck, letting the weight of the moment settle into him. He had faced death countless times. He had stared into the abyss of collapsing starships, and he had commanded campaigns where millions of lives hung on a single maneuver. But nothing in his experience had prepared him for the audacity of humans. "They're ghosts," whispered a diplomat, voice trembling. "They're fleets. They're worlds. They vanish like smoke." Ky'raan's lips twitched in a grim smile. "Not ghosts," he corrected softly. "Storms. That's what humans are. Storms you can't see coming until it's too late." He returned to the console, running simulations of Earth's orbital patterns. His mind raced as he analyzed the faint disturbances, the anomalies in gravitational flux, and the subtle energy signatures too precise to be random. Humans had cloaked a planetary defense network on a scale that no one could have imagined. And they had done it silently, patiently over decades. "This can't be possible," muttered Ky'raan, peering at the holographic display. "Even with their ingenuity, entire fleets just disappearing?" Ky'raan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he allowed himself a small moment of reflection. He remembered the humans he had studied in training simulations and real skirmishes alike. how they had turned traps into victories, how their engineers could repurpose failing technology in minutes, and how their soldiers could improvise when everything went wrong. Humans had a way of bending circumstances to their will, often leaving chaos and astonishment in their wake. "Lieutenant," he finally said, voice low but resolute, "observe closely. They haven't attacked yet. They're letting the first wave approach. They're teaching us patience and humility." Krill swallowed hard. "Sir, the aliens we've sent, they didn't even report distress signals, nothing. How do we respond?" Ky'raan's gaze hardened. "We wait. And we learn." He felt it then, a subtle, almost imperceptible shiver of awe at the unseen hand guiding this species. There was a rhythm to humanity's preparation, something almost spiritual in its precision. Ky'raan had always believed that God's presence in the universe was subtle, woven into the mechanics of creation rather than displayed in grand gestures. And here it was in humans alive in their resolve, their ingenuity, their unity. Elsewhere, Earth's hidden systems began to respond. Cloaked defense satellites flickered to life, orbital grids rearranging themselves in patterns invisible to outside observers. The planet was no longer passive. It was awake, it was aware, and it was ready. Ky'raan watched as the first alien scouts, small, agile vessels sent to map Earth's defenses, approached the system. They crossed the invisible threshold in orbit, expecting perhaps to gather data or test planetary responses. Instead, they vanished. The sensors registered nothing. No explosions, no signatures, no debris. The room erupted into panic. Fleet commanders shouted over one another, issuing impossible orders, recalculating strategies in real time. But nothing could change the reality before them. Humans had claimed the initiative without firing a shot. Ky'raan's hand rested lightly on the console, his mind racing. He imagined the humans orchestrating this from deep underground bunkers, secret orbital stations, and hidden command centers. The precision, the patience, the audacity, it was quintessentially human. And he felt something deeper, an intuition he could not explain. Luck had nothing to do with it. Some invisible intelligence, some divine subtlety, had guided these actions, ensuring humanity's survival. One alien officer, trembling, approached Ky'raan with wide, fearful eyes. How do we counter this?" Ky'raan didn't answer immediately. He simply looked at the projection of Earth, quiet and serene. "You don't," he said finally. "You survive it. If you can." A sudden alert blared across the console. Another wave of scouts had entered Earth's vicinity and vanished instantly, swallowed by the hidden defenses. Ky'raan's chest tightened with a mix of excitement and foreboding. He had spent a lifetime anticipating human ingenuity in battle. He had prepared for strategies, countermeasures, diplomacy, but never for something as audacious, as silent, as complete as this. Somewhere, deep inside, he felt a stirring of humility. Humanity had survived for millennia not because of luck, but because they had always been guided by faith, by courage, by creativity, and perhaps by something greater, a subtle intelligence threading the universe together. Ky'raan turned to the council chamber, eyes scanning the terrified faces of the alien officers. "Prepare for more," he said quietly. "This is only the beginning. They haven't revealed their strength yet. But when they do..." He let the sentence hang, the weight of it pressing down on the room like gravity. The aliens understood without words what they had witnessed was a prelude. Humans were patient. Humans were relentless. And they were about to show the galaxy why silence could be deadlier than war. Ky'raan exhaled slowly, his gaze returning to the serene image of Earth. Somewhere in the cities, in bunkers and command centers, humans continued their quiet work. He imagined engineers adjusting orbital shields, scientists monitoring sensors, soldiers preparing contingencies, and he felt the faint, almost spiritual certainty that they would succeed, not because of technology alone, but because of something deeper: unity, ingenuity, faith. The Admiral whispered to himself almost reverently, "Not luck. Someone wanted them to survive." And then across the vast projection of the galaxy, one final thought settled in the minds of all who observed Earth's silent power. Humanity was not merely hiding. Humanity was shaping the storm to come. Ky'raan's eyes tracked the silent, invisible choreography of Earth's defenses, the way the orbital sensors picked up faint energy distortions that no one could interpret. Humans were not idle. They had waited, and now the first wave of their carefully orchestrated plan was about to unfold. The alarm blared across the Galactic Federation headquarters. Alien fleets, previously confident in their superiority, suddenly scattered in chaos as the first signals of activity reached the outer perimeter of Sol's orbit. Ky'raan leaned forward, his hands gripping the edge of the console, feeling a rush of anticipation and unease. He had seen many battles, but nothing like this. A war waged without a sound, without visible ships, without the predictable logic of combat. "Sir, sensors report multiple orbital disturbances," Ky'raan said, voice tight. "They're moving with intent, but there's nothing there." Ky'raan didn't speak immediately. He allowed the silence to fill the chamber, letting it weigh on every officer present. The aliens whispered and murmured, their fear palpable, and then he spoke, his voice low, precise, and calm. "They've begun." Outside the observation windows, stars stretched endlessly, indifferent to the unfolding drama. The projection dome displayed Earth serene, almost innocent in appearance. And yet every instinct Ky'raan possessed screamed that something monumental was about to occur. Humans had built their storm in silence. Now they were letting it break. A small alien scout sent too close to Earth's orbit suddenly disappeared from the sensors. Not destroyed, there were no explosions, no fragments, no distress signals. Ky'raan's fingers brushed against the console as he analyzed the readings. The ship had vanished into what could only be described as a localized spatial anomaly. "They're testing," Ky'raan murmured. "They're letting the first wave probe, and then they will decide how far the storm should go." Ky'raan swallowed. "Sir, the other fleets are recalculating. They don't understand what's happening. They're terrified." Ky'raan's lips pressed into a thin line. He had seen that terror before, in the eyes of species who had underestimated humans in past conflicts. But this was different. It wasn't just fear, it was a recognition of inevitability. The humans weren't just defending. They were controlling the terms of engagement. Suddenly the orbital array flickered, and a faint but distinct energy signature appeared, massive, circular, and impossible to trace with conventional sensors. Ky'raan's heart quickened. He realized what he was seeing. Earth's first visible defensive measure. Cloaked satellite grids had activated, forming layers of electromagnetic and gravitational traps designed to confound, disorient, and erase incoming vessels. A wave of alien dread swept through the room as one scout after another vanished in moments. There were no distress calls, no evidence of combat, just erasure. Ky'raan watched, fascinated as the human's unseen hand reshaped the battlefield before anyone could react. "They're ghosts," muttered an alien diplomat, eyes wide. "Invisible, untouchable, unstoppable." Ky'raan's chest tightened, not with fear but with admiration. Humans had always thrived in chaos, turning adversity into opportunity. They were relentless, ingenious, and united. And now, for the first time in history, the galaxy could see what patience, strategy, and audacity could achieve without firing a single shot. "Not ghosts," Ky'raan corrected softly, echoing a thought he had voiced before. "Storms. They are storms." Across the council chamber, whispers erupted into panic. Fleet commanders barked orders, recalculating trajectories, diverting vessels, attempting to formulate a response. But the humans had anticipated every variable, every possible reaction, every conceivable miscalculation. Ky'raan turned to Ky'raan. "Record everything, every anomaly, every displacement. We must learn, or we will be destroyed when the real strike comes." The young officer nodded, fear and awe mingling in his expression. "Sir, how do they do this?" Ky'raan did not answer immediately. He allowed the silence to speak, letting it hang in the air like a living thing. Then he said quietly, almost reverently, "Because they refuse to be predictable, and because they believe in something greater than chance." He glanced at Earth, its oceans glinting faintly under a distant sun. Somewhere beneath the surface, humans were moving with silent purpose, adjusting shields, redirecting power, recalibrating orbital defenses. He imagined engineers in underground bunkers, soldiers monitoring every system, and leaders coordinating with precision that would make any military strategist weep with admiration. Ky'raan could almost feel the divine hand guiding them, not as a voice or a form, but as an intelligence threaded through their creativity, courage, and unity. Humans did not rely on luck. They relied on will, faith, and the quiet order that sometimes touched even the most chaotic corners of the universe. Another scout approached, too close to the orbital grid. Sensors screamed. Ky'raan's fingers moved across the console in rapid sequences, analyzing patterns, energy shifts, gravitational anomalies. And then the ship vanished, leaving no trace. A collective gasp filled the chamber. Some officers sank into their seats, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. Others stared, frozen with a mixture of awe and fear. Ky'raan felt it too, a sense that history was unfolding before him, that a species had risen to a level of strategic brilliance that no algorithm, no fleet, no empire could easily match. He whispered to himself, almost in prayer, not luck. Someone wanted them to survive. The first visible strike had been made, silent yet undeniable. Alien scouts were gone. Empires scrambled, recalculating strategies they could not hope to understand. And somewhere in the hidden command centers of Earth, humans continued their work. Patient, methodical, and unyielding. Ky'raan exhaled, feeling the weight of admiration and dread mingling within him. This was more than war. It was a revelation. Humans had shown the galaxy that silence could be more powerful than 1,000 fleets, and that patience could strike harder than any weapon. And as he watched the invisible storm gather strength, Ky'raan realized a truth that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Humanity did not need to be loud to be lethal. They only needed to be clever, relentless, and united. Ky'raan stood motionless, watching the projections flicker as another scout fleet vanished. The Galactic Federation headquarters had descended into a tense silence, broken only by the soft hum of energy monitors and the frantic clicks of officers trying to comprehend the impossible. Every calculation, every algorithm, every predictive model they had relied on was suddenly irrelevant. Humanity had rewritten the rules of engagement, silently, flawlessly, and without warning. "Sir," Lieutenant Ky'raan's voice trembled as he pointed to the hollow grid. They're creating a field, a massive orbital something. It's not a weapon, not in the conventional sense, but nothing passes through it intact. It's like a wall. Ky'raan's scarred jaw tightened. He had anticipated ingenuity. He had prepared for tactics that bent conventional logic. But this was audacity incarnate. Humans had cloaked an entire planetary defense network, a hidden wall invisible to sensors and shields alike, and they had activated it with surgical precision. They call it defense, Ky'raan murmured to himself. Humans call it survival. Across the council chamber, alien officers muttered in disbelief. Their fleets were still amassing, still confident that they could probe the Sol system. Yet every attempt to breach the invisible perimeter ended the same. Vanishing fleets, inexplicable disappearances, sensors overwhelmed by patterns beyond comprehension. Fear was no longer a whisper, it was a roar. Ky'raan pivoted to face the council. Prepare for a full diagnostic of every human orbital signature we can detect. Track every fluctuation, every anomaly. We may not understand it yet, but we must anticipate it, or we will be unprepared when the storm fully hits. A senior alien officer, tentacles twitching nervously, spoke. "Admiral, our fleets are paralyzed. They do not know where to strike. Our weapons cannot find targets. It is as if the humans erased them." Ky'raan nodded slowly. "Not erased," he said, his voice deliberate and calm. "Redirected, shielded, controlled. Humans don't destroy first, they manipulate. And when they strike, it will be decisive." He returned to the hollow grid, eyes narrowing as he studied the subtle distortions in space-time around Earth. The orbital grid was not uniform. It pulsed, shifted, and adapted in real time. Each anomaly was a trap, each gravitational eddy a potential snare for any ship that dared approach. Humanity had created a living defense, an invisible wall that reacted before threat could materialize. "Sir," Ky'raan whispered, awe tinged with fear. "They're thinking ahead. They're predicting our moves, even before we make them." Ky'raan exhaled, a mixture of admiration and apprehension coursing through him. Humans had always been unpredictable, but this was on another level entirely. It was not just strategy, it was foresight woven into the very fabric of their technology, guided by intuition, ingenuity, and perhaps something greater. A soft vibration ran through the console as another fleet entered Earth's vicinity. Sensors lit up, tracking the incoming vessels. And then, one by one, the ships were swallowed by the orbital grid. No explosions, no debris, only silence and a message that resonated across every observer's mind. Humanity controls the rules of engagement. Ky'raan's eyes softened for a fleeting moment, not in pity, but in recognition. He had studied humans for decades, faced them in battle, debated them in diplomacy. He knew their cunning, their audacity, and their unrelenting will. And now, in full display, the galaxy was beginning to see what he had known all along. Humans were capable of defying expectation in ways that bordered on miraculous. "Lieutenant," he said quietly, almost reverently, "record every fluctuation, every anomaly. This is a lesson no strategist can afford to ignore." Ky'raan nodded, awed by the Admiral's calm amidst the chaos. "Sir, it's like they're alive. The system itself is alive, responding, reacting, protecting." Ky'raan's lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "Not alive," he corrected softly, eyes fixed on the serene image of Earth. "Human." And then, in the quiet hum of the observation deck, he felt the subtle presence again, not as a deity with voice or form, but as an intelligence threading the universe together, guiding ingenuity and courage. Perhaps this was the divine spark that had carried humanity through countless adversities. A quiet, unseen hand ensuring that when the storm was unleashed, it would strike with precision and purpose. Across the projection dome, alien fleets hesitated. They had faced humans before, but never like this. Never a species that could vanish, conceal, and defend on a scale that defied all reason. The invisible wall around Earth was a statement. We are here, we are prepared, and we are not to be underestimated. Ky'raan exhaled again, feeling the enormity of what was unfolding. Humanity had taken the first active step in a plan centuries in the making, and every empire in the galaxy would soon learn a simple truth. Silence could be a weapon deadlier than firepower, and patience a strategy more lethal than fleets. He turned to the council, eyes blazing. "Prepare the fleets," he said, voice low and commanding. "They have not yet revealed their full power, but when they do, only the clever, the patient, and the brave will survive, and most will not." And as Earth's hidden defenses pulsed silently in orbit, Ky'raan felt a deep certainty settle within him. Humans had done more than survive, they had become the storm itself. Ky'raan's heart pounded as he watched the first human strike unfold in real time. The invisible wall around Earth had already humiliated the alien scouts, erased their fleets, and rewritten every empire's assumptions. But now the humans were moving beyond defense. They were taking the initiative. Sensors picked up the faintest distortions in space, a ripple here, a gravitational shift there. To the untrained eye, nothing appeared to be happening. To Ky'raan, veteran of countless wars, every microfluctuation was a message, every anomaly a stroke of genius. Humans were orchestrating the first offensive act of the silent war. "Sir," Lieutenant Ky'raan whispered, barely audible, "they're targeting the lead cruisers of the approaching fleet. But there's no firing, no projectiles, no energy beams." Ky'raan's lips pressed into a thin, hard line. "Watch carefully. You are witnessing human ingenuity at work." The cruisers, confident in their superior firepower, approached Earth's orbit as if drawn by gravity alone. But then the anomalies converged. Each ship encountered localized gravitational turbulence, subtle enough to seem like sensor errors, yet forceful enough to immobilize vessels in precise positions. Hulls groaned under the stress of forces they could not perceive. Engines strained against invisible pressures, and yet the humans' handiwork remained unseen. They're holding them in place," Ky'raan murmured. "But how?" "It's impossible." Ky'raan did not answer immediately. He felt that familiar stir in his chest, a mixture of awe, dread, and admiration. Humans did not rely on firepower alone. They relied on creativity, intuition, and an almost preternatural ability to anticipate their enemies' moves. Every alien assumption, every tactical calculation had been anticipated and countered before the fleets even entered the system. Across the projection dome, Ky'raan observed a new development. Tiny, stealthy drones, cloaked and undetectable to conventional scanners, emerged from Earth's hidden orbital network. They moved with elegant precision, slipping between enemy hulls, attaching magnetic and energy-disruptive devices with the skill of human engineers, trained for decades in ingenuity and improvisation. Ky'raan allowed himself a small smile. "Ingenious," he murmured. "Absolutely ingenious." The alien commanders panicked, issuing desperate maneuvers that only played into human hands. Every attempt to escape or retaliate met invisible resistance. Every strike against Earth's defenses was anticipated and nullified before impact. The humans were no longer merely defending, they were shaping the battlefield itself. A quiet ripple of awe passed through the council chamber. Ky'raan could see it reflected in the eyes of alien officers. Disbelief, terror, and the dawning realization that they were witnessing something beyond their comprehension. Humanity had taken the abstract concept of war, strategy, calculation, prediction, and transformed it into art. And in that art, humans were the masters. Ky'raan's thoughts drifted briefly to the unseen hand guiding them. It was subtle, not as a deity speaking through thunder, but as the quiet intelligence threading courage, creativity, and resolve into every action. Humanity had survived countless adversities, not by luck but by faith in themselves, in each other, and in something larger, something eternal that whispered in the shadows of existence. Suddenly, the immobilized alien cruisers shuddered as the stealth drones completed their work. Energy disruptors disabled engines. Navigation systems failed, and one by one the ships were rendered useless, helpless to resist the humans' silent control. The Galactic Federation's fleet, so confident moments ago, now faced a reality they could barely comprehend. Humans had struck without warning, without conventional weapons, and without revealing the full extent of their power. Ky'raan leaned back, exhaling slowly. His mind raced with both professional curiosity and a personal sense of awe. He had faced clever enemies, brilliant tacticians, and formidable fleets, but nothing prepared him for the scale and subtlety of human ingenuity. They were patient, precise, and unstoppable, even without displaying their full strength. "Lieutenant," he said quietly, almost reverently, "record every moment, every maneuver, every anomaly. This is a lesson no strategist can afford to ignore." Ky'raan nodded, voice trembling with a mix of fear and admiration. "Sir, it's like they're everywhere and nowhere at once. They control the battlefield without even being visible." Ky'raan's gaze returned to Earth's serene image on the projection dome. The planet rotated silently beneath a distant sun, oceans shimmering, cities hidden beneath layers of secrecy, yet alive with unseen human activity. Somewhere underground, in command centers, bunkers, and hidden stations, humans were coordinating every aspect of this silent offensive with breathtaking precision. And then he whispered, almost as if speaking to himself, "Not luck. Someone wanted them to survive." Across the council chamber, alien fleets were immobilized, their assumptions shattered and their morale crumbling. The humans' first strike, silent, invisible, and decisive, had rewritten the rules of engagement. Every empire now understood a truth that would haunt their future campaigns. To underestimate humans was to invite disaster. Ky'raan's lips curved into a faint smile, a mixture of admiration and unease. He had witnessed courage before. He had commanded fleets, faced death, and survived countless conflicts. But this was something beyond mere warfare. This was the human spirit made manifest in strategy, creativity, and relentless resolve. And as the first wave of alien forces reeled in helplessness, he realized a singular truth. Humanity's quiet storm had only begun. The full force of their ingenuity, patience, and audacity had yet to be revealed. The Admiral exhaled, feeling the weight of history settling over him. Earth had gone silent, and in that silence the first strike of the storm had shattered assumptions, defied logic, and left the galaxy trembling. Ky'raan felt the room shift beneath him, not physically but in atmosphere. The council chamber had become a place of quiet panic. Alien officers frozen mid-command, eyes wide as they stared at projections showing helpless cruisers drifting through Earth's orbit. Their confident calculations had been shattered, their strategies rendered irrelevant. The humans had not fired a shot in the conventional sense, and yet they had won the first engagement. But this was only the beginning. Ky'raan knew it instinctively. Humans did not stop at defense. They escalated. Every maneuver, every hidden trap, every subtle distortion of space had a purpose. The first strike had been a statement. The next would be a declaration. "Sir," Ky'raan whispered, voice tight with awe. "They're mobilizing something else. The sensors show coordinated activity below the orbital grid, something moving within the planet's hidden command centers." Ky'raan's scarred hand pressed against the console. "They're preparing the second wave. And this time it's not defensive." The projection dome shifted as new data streamed in. Small, agile ships, cloaked and undetectable, emerged from Earth's hidden orbital network. They moved with staggering precision, weaving between the immobilized alien cruisers, attaching devices that disrupted power systems and communication arrays. Every movement was deliberate, every action calculated. Humans were turning the immobilized fleets into pawns, manipulating their positions to perfection. They're using the alien ships against themselves, Ky'raan stammered, eyes wide. It's brilliant, unthinkable. Ky'raan allowed a faint nod. That's humanity. They do not merely fight. They think. They improvise. They turn chaos into opportunity. Across the chamber, alien officers were panicking. Commands were shouted. Fleets tried to reorganize, but every movement was anticipated, every escape path predicted. Humans had become the unseen hand in the battlefield, controlling outcomes without ever revealing themselves. Ky'raan's gaze drifted to the serene image of Earth. He imagined the engineers in hidden bunkers, the scientists in underground labs, the soldiers monitoring every screen and every sensor. He imagined their leaders calm and precise, guiding the storm with patience honed over decades. And then he felt it again, that subtle presence, quiet but undeniable. Not as a deity speaking through thunder, but as an intelligence threading courage, creativity, and unity into every human action. Humanity's ingenuity was more than instinct. It was touched by something vast, something eternal. A guiding hand that ensured they would survive when all odds seemed impossible. A sudden alert flared across the console. The humans' second maneuver was underway. Electromagnetic disruptors fired from the hidden drones, disabling the alien cruisers' weapons systems. Communications blacked out across the immobilized fleets. And then, in perfect synchronization, gravitational micromanipulators began nudging the alien ships into controlled orbits, redirecting them harmlessly toward empty sectors of space. Ky'raan's lips curved into a faint, awed smile. Humans had taken immobilized enemy vessels and turned them into tools for containment. They were fighting without fire, waging war through strategy, precision, and anticipation. Every empire that had underestimated them now faced an unthinkable reality. Humans did not merely survive. They dominated the battlefield invisibly. Not luck, Ky'raan murmured almost reverently. Someone wanted them to survive, and they are proving it with every move. Ky'raan blinked rapidly. Sir, the aliens? They're trying to call reinforcements. But the humans, they're anticipating that too. Every communication attempt is being jammed. Every signal intercepted. It's like Earth itself is alive. Ky'raan's scarred hand traced the console's edge, feeling the rhythm of the battle without touching the data. Humans were alive in every strategy, every improvisation, every carefully hidden strike. He could feel the unity, the courage, and the creativity coursing through their unseen network. They were relentless, empathetic, and fearless in a way that defied logic. And then came the most remarkable sight. The first alien capital ship, a massive dreadnought, immobilized and stripped of weaponry, began to slowly orbit Earth's equator, not as a prisoner but as a demonstration of control. Humanity had taken what the enemy valued most and rendered it powerless without firing a single conventional shot. Ky'raan exhaled slowly, a mix of relief, admiration, and apprehension settling over him. Humanity had done more than defend their planet. They had orchestrated the first act of a war that no one in the galaxy could have anticipated. Their ingenuity was awe-inspiring, their patience terrifying, their resolve unshakable. Across the council chamber, alien officers sank into despair. Fleet commanders barked incoherent orders trying to regain control, but it was useless. Humans had turned every assumption against them. They had revealed their strength not in violence, but in invisible dominance, in audacious brilliance, in patience, and in faith. Ky'raan's gaze softened as he looked at Earth, its oceans shimmering faintly under a distant sun, somewhere underground, hidden from view. Humans were already planning the next stage, anticipating every empire's reaction, and he knew with a certainty that both exhilarated and terrified him that this was only the beginning. He whispered to himself, almost like a prayer. Not luck. Someone wanted them to survive. The council chamber fell into uneasy silence. The immobilized alien fleets drifted helplessly. The first active stage of humanity's invisible strike complete. Ky'raan felt the weight of the moment settle on him. Earth had gone silent, yes, but silence had become a weapon more powerful than any fleet, more cunning than any strategy, and more terrifying than any visible force. And somewhere deep beneath the planet's surface, humans were already preparing for the next wave. Ky'raan leaned forward, his hands resting lightly on the console, feeling the pulse of human strategy like a rhythm he could sense, but not touch. Earth's defenses had already humiliated the alien scouts, immobilized capital ships, and turned enemy fleets into pawns. Yet even as the Council reeled from their first encounter, Ky'raan knew the humans were preparing for something far more audacious, something that would redefine the very meaning of power. "Sir?" Lieutenant Ky'raan whispered, voice taut with tension. "The drones. They're deploying again. But this time, it's more than just immobilization. They're reorganizing the alien formations, like a conductor arranging an orchestra." Ky'raan's jaw tightened. "Exactly. Humans do not attack blindly. They do not react. They dictate." He turned to watch the holographic display as tiny dots representing the cloaked drones move through the immobilized fleet with uncanny precision. Every disruption, every shift in gravitational field, every localized energy pulse served a singular purpose: to control the battlefield without revealing themselves. Across the council chamber, alien officers whispered frantic speculations. Some speculated the humans had supernatural control over space-time. Others muttered about unknown weapons. But Ky'raan knew better. It was ingenuity, patience, relentless calculation. Humanity had learned to manipulate chaos itself, and now they wielded it like a blade. A new alert flared. One of the enemy fleets, previously paralyzed, attempted a breakout maneuver. Engines roared, shields flickered, and yet within moments every ship was nudged back into its designated orbit by invisible forces. Gravitational micro-manipulators adjusted subtly, energy pulses disrupted control circuits, and the human drones orchestrated the response with breathtaking precision. Ky'raan exhaled slowly, feeling a thrill mixed with apprehension. Humans had taken the alien fleet's aggression and turned it into a spectacle of control, a display of strategy so profound that the very concept of conventional warfare seemed laughably primitive. "They're using our assumptions against us," Ky'raan said, voice trembling. "Every move we predict, they anticipate, even exploit it." Ky'raan nodded, eyes fixed on Earth's serene image in the projection dome. "That's what makes them human. They are relentless, unpredictable, and brilliant. Every disaster has trained them to anticipate the impossible. Every hardship has sharpened their minds. And every act of courage has strengthened their resolve." He felt it again. The subtle, almost imperceptible presence threading through their actions. Not a deity in form, not a force that preached, but an intelligence quietly guiding human ingenuity and faith. A silent hand that shaped courage into survival and ingenuity into dominance. Perhaps that presence had always been there, subtly influencing the arc of human history, ensuring that when the storm broke, it would be precise, devastating, and transformative. Ky'raan's eyes tracked the alien capital ships now. One by one, they were maneuvered into positions where they could do no harm. Some were nudged into trajectories that would send them harmlessly into empty space sectors. Others were gently forced into orbits where the humans could monitor them indefinitely. The battlefield had been neutralized without a single visible strike. Humans had rewritten the rules, defense had become offense, invisibility had become dominance, and patience had become a weapon more lethal than fleets. "Sir," Ky'raan said, hesitant, What will they do next? They've already rendered the fleets useless, and yet I can feel it. They're not finished. Not by a long shot." Ky'raan allowed a small wry smile to cross his lips. "They never are. Humans do not stop. They adapt. They create. They endure. And in their endurance, they thrive where others falter. This is the storm we've been warned about, and it has only begun." A subtle vibration ran through the console as new projections flickered to life. Sensors detected faint energy surges emanating from beneath the planetary surface. Hidden bunkers, subterranean command centers, and cloaked orbital stations coordinating in perfect synchronization. Humans were about to demonstrate the next stage of their strategy, controlled escalation. Ky'raan's mind raced, envisioning engineers tweaking orbital grids, soldiers recalibrating drones, leaders coordinating every minute movement with clarity and precision. Every step was deliberate. Every action had purpose. The humans were not just defending. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson in the true meaning of power, patience, and ingenuity. And somewhere in the calm silence of Earth's secret command centers, A human operative whispered a quiet prayer, not for themselves, not for victory, but for clarity, for courage, and for the subtle guidance that had always led them through impossible situations. Ky'raan felt the resonance of it, the almost spiritual certainty that humanity was being watched, guided and protected, not by luck but by something greater woven into the fabric of existence. The council chamber remained tense and silent. Alien officers, now fully aware of the futility of their aggression, whispered to one another in fear and disbelief. They realized that humanity's power was not in numbers or weapons or fleets. It was in patience, creativity, courage, and unity. Humanity had become a force impossible to quantify, unpredictable and terrifying in its subtle mastery. Ky'raan exhaled, leaning back in his chair. The storm had not yet fully broken, but its first waves had already reshaped the battlefield. Earth had gone silent, yes, but in that silence, humans had become the architects of destiny, unseen but unyielding. And as he watched the invisible storm orchestrate itself with precision, he whispered once more reverently, "Not luck, someone wanted them to survive." The galaxy trembled, not at the sound of weapons but at the weight of human ingenuity unleashed, and Ky'raan knew with absolute certainty that the final act was coming. Ky'raan's eyes were fixed on the projection dome as the final stage began to unfold. The invisible currents of human strategy, so precise and patient, were now converging into something that transcended conventional warfare. The alien fleets, paralyzed by awe and fear, could no longer hope to escape or counter. They were about to witness the full measure of humanity's ingenuity, courage, and silent mastery. Beneath Earth's surface, in bunkers and command centers hidden for centuries, humans coordinated the culmination of decades of preparation. Engineers adjusted massive orbital grids, satellites repositioned themselves in flawless synchrony, and stealth drones swarmed through the immobilized alien ships, completing their silent work. Every action had been anticipated, every countermove predicted. Humanity's storm was no longer subtle. It was about to reveal its full force. Ky'raan's gaze followed a fleet of alien dreadnoughts being carefully nudged into precise positions. Humans were not destroying them yet. They were demonstrating control, making clear that brute force was unnecessary when ingenuity and patience could accomplish more than any weapon. The immobilized ships became instruments in an orchestra, every movement dictated by unseen hands, every reaction anticipated and exploited. Lieutenant Ky'raan leaned close to Ky'raan, eyes wide with awe. "Sir, they're turning the fleets into a demonstration, not just neutralizing them, showing what they can do." Ky'raan's jaw tightened. "Exactly. Humans are teaching the galaxy a lesson. Power isn't just firepower. It's creativity, will, and courage. And when you harness them, nothing can stop you." From orbit, subtle energy pulses began to radiate outward from Earth's hidden arrays. Alien sensors, overloaded and confounded, interpreted the readings as anomalies, disturbances, even malfunctions. But Ky'raan knew better. The pulses were a warning, a signal, and a declaration all at once. Humans had become the storm itself, invisible yet omnipresent, shaping the battlefield without a single conventional shot. Somewhere deep within the control centers, a human operative gazed at the holographic displays and whispered softly, "Not by chance, not by luck, we were guided." A faint smile crossed his lips, and he adjusted the controls with careful precision. In every gesture there was faith, courage, and the unshakable conviction that humanity could prevail against impossible odds. Ky'raan felt it then, the subtle, quiet presence threading through the human's actions, not as a deity in form or voice, but as an intelligence behind creation itself, guiding ingenuity, resolve, and the delicate balance of courage and patience. The humans' victories were not miracles. They were the product of skill, will, and the subtle touch of something eternal that had long favored the indomitable spirit of humanity. And then it happened. The immobilized alien fleets, now perfectly positioned, were subjected to the humans' final demonstration. Cloaked drones activated gravitational micro-manipulators at full intensity, sending each vessel on carefully calculated trajectories that would neutralize any offensive capability and remove them from the theater of war entirely. Communications remained severed. Weapons were disabled without destruction. The fleets were not annihilated. They were rendered irrelevant. Ky'raan's lips parted in a mixture of disbelief and awe. They've rewritten the rules of war, he whispered. Without a single shot, they've rendered a galaxy's fleets powerless. Across the council chamber, alien officers muttered incoherently, their voices trembling. Some wept quietly, overwhelmed by the display of control and mastery they could neither comprehend nor counter. Every empire, every strategist, every fleet commander now understood the terrifying truth. Humanity's strength was not measured in ships, fleets, or conventional weapons. It was measured in will, creativity, unity, and unyielding courage. Ky'raan turned his gaze once more to Earth, serene under the distant sun. The planet had gone silent, yes, but that silence had been a deliberate act, a cloak, a shield, and a storm all at once. Humans had prepared, waited, and struck not with violence, but with strategy, patience, and audacious brilliance. They had demonstrated that sometimes the quietest action carries the heaviest weight. He whispered almost reverently to himself. Not luck. Someone wanted them to survive. And in that moment, the humans made their final subtle gesture, a single pulse of energy, carefully calculated, rippling across the immobilized fleets, marking them as neutralized, untouched, and fully under observation. It was a demonstration of restraint, of intelligence, and of power. The galaxy had seen the storm, and it trembled. Ky'raan exhaled slowly, feeling both relief and awe. Humanity had not merely defended their world, they had revealed the true measure of their spirit. Clever, compassionate, courageous, and guided by a quiet intelligence beyond reckoning. They had transformed silence into strategy, patience into power, and ingenuity into dominance. And as he watched Earth rotate silently beneath the distant sun, Ky'raan knew one undeniable truth. Every empire that had underestimated humanity would now remember them forever, not as conquerors to be crushed, but as a force of indomitable spirit capable of shaping fate itself. The storm had broken, and somewhere, deep within hidden command centers across the planet, humans whispered in unison. With hearts resolute and eyes alight, not luck, someone wanted us to survive.